Okay, next up, Yuval and Sandeep are going to give us a network visibility and enforcement update.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon, almost good evening. Just so you know, based on the learning from the previous session, I am the only thing between you and beer. And before you turn, you throw 30 questions at me, I'm not going to leave the stage. Just, No, but thank you very much for staying here, listening to the ICE update. My name is Yuval Shchori. I run the product management team for ICE, part of Security Policy and Access. Together with me in the room and in other buildings in San Jose and in different areas of the U.S. are both PMEs and product managers of the product. So if you have any questions about what I'm talking about or other stuff, feel free to just throw the questions at the WebEx and you'll get plenty of answers. The things that I would like to focus today, probably not new if you already seen my, for example, my last update. Things didn't change from a market perspective. Customers are very much focused on first visibility, then control. Tell me what's in my network. Tell me where it is. Tell me what it's doing. Tell me what type is it, so I can understand how can I control it. And only then I'll be able to decide on the policy. I'll decide what I'm going to do. Especially with IoT becoming a real reality, not like, reality, yes, I'm thinking about this, but customers are actually saying, yes, I'm starting to see IoT in my network. Some customers of mine refer to it as Internet of Trash, mainly because, it's something I'm saying quite a lot these last weeks in multiple presentations. If you take a look at what's going to be connected to the network, things like, for example, light bulbs and other stuff which are really simple, they cost not a lot of money. And now that when you take a regular light bulb and you make it an IoT-enabled light bulb, you actually need to connect a computer to it, and you need to connect a wireless interface to it, and still it needs to stay competitive. So you can't charge $50 for a bulb that, without the IoT attached to it, or the IoT smartness or awesomeness, costs $1 or $1.50. It has to be very simple, very cheap computer, and also the wireless interface is going to be very simple, right? What does this mean? It means that we have more vectors of attack on the network. It is not going to be smart enough to, protect the network. It is going to be as dumb as hell, and you better believe that there are going to be enough hackers trying to hack networks through IoT devices. Not that it did not happen. If you heard about the DNS attack, I think last year, I think it was September of last year, right, where half of the internet was down, but OpenDNS, that was, I think, one of the only DNS systems that was not taken down by this attack. It was due to, you can call it IoT or not, it was IP-enabled cameras, home security systems, right? Not different from everything and anything that your customers are going to put in the network. So again, they want to know exactly what's connected. Wireless is not making it any simple or any easier on them to understand what's connected to the network. And if you haven't heard yet about the new vulnerabilities they found this morning with WPA2, at first they thought it was WPA2 PSK, and then everybody said, yeah, I don't care about that, it's only for home users. And then they, reading again the article, you understand it's the WPA protocol regardless of are you using PSK or enterprise, all right? So you can't protect what you can't see. You want to be able to understand what's going to attack you, right? This is one thing that I'm going to give you a couple of updates on with regards to that. And one of the things when we talk about both visibility and control, we have multiple discussions with customers that almost amaze us in how critical ICE has become in the recent I would say several years, two, maybe a little bit more to customers. And you get it not because customer is saying that, but because when you delve into the asks, the new features, the requirements that we need to abide to, you understand that we're talking about something that is really, really serious, really important in the network. And we're talking about scalability requirements that we never were asked to deliver, and resiliency requirements, you know, we still have good resiliency options like, you know, critical VLANs and critical ACLs, but customers want more. Customers want that even when the PSN is, you know, can't connect to the PAN because the WAN link is down, they want the experience to be the same. They don't want to give away security. They want the experience to be the same and still maintain the same level of security. So we're going to talk about mainly around these areas, about, you know, providing more visibility into what's connected to the network and how do we better control it, and also what are we doing in order to make the entire deployment, the entire system more resilient and more scalable. So what's in the release? So first, I hope that you know, we have started what we refer to as the road to posture NG, to next generation posture. You probably know that you have to have, you know, something next generation with your product, or else it doesn't mean anything to anyone. I always ask myself, like, what comes after next generation? It's kind of, you know, it's kind of a vicious circle. But if you take a look at after the immense changes we introduced to posture, last two releases, let's look what we're planning in 2.4. So first, we need to, I would say, better behave with end users. I was a CISO back in 2000, and when I was a CISO back then, the way to measure a good or strong, I should say, CISO was CISO was how much was he hated. If you were really hated, you're a good, strong CISO because you're guarding the fortress. Today, CISOs are very much concerned about end users complaining about them, and we see it again in the requirements we get. If once, you know, the questions were, you know, I want you to not allow anyone in my network if they're not 100% compliant with posture, today the requirement is, if they're not compliant, give them a grace period. So let them in and let's hope they will repent and, you know, update their antivirus, et cetera, right? This is what we're seeing, and we'll talk about this. Customer want, first, more flexibility. They want to be able to be more flexible, provide, again, end users with more flexibility, and they also want to see faster value when they start POVs. And it's also, I think, it's very much relevant when, especially when I'm standing in front of you guys who are our partners, you also want to make sure that when you go into an ICE POV, you get the maximum volume in the maximum value in the minimum investment of time. And also, when we compete with Forescout, it's sometimes, you know, funny to hear what they're taunting, and sometimes it's kind of alarming to see that customers really buy it. You know, I don't know if you know, Forescout went and they're now they have submitted what's called a SEC filing, an S1 filing. It's funny to see, you know, that I was expecting them to talk about, you know, tens of thousands of customers. They are reporting around 2,500 only, although they're making quite a lot of noise in the market. And I can tell you that from a perspective, right, of kind of where are we coming, we are at least, well, I can't talk about numbers, but we're not in the same ballpark in terms of customers, right? But still, every customer that's met Forescout, what do they say? You can get posture without an agent, which is a nice POV story. We know that in a production network, I never managed to find even a single customer that is running production and is running without an agent. with Force Scout running, but you know, it doesn't matter because it makes the sale, right? And eventually we're all interested in also making the sale. So what are we doing as part of 2.4? One, you know, warning that I should give you guys: if you see the work in progress here, you should understand this is work in progress. ICE 2.4 is still being coded, right? From a timeline perspective, probably if this was, you know, maybe 2 months out, this session would have been easier because, you know, everything was either out or ready to be shipped. But what you're seeing here is really sometimes it's mock-ups, it's not, it might change, right? Actually, even if you don't see work in progress and you see screens, it might change. Most of what you're going to see today are mock-ups. But anyhow, with what we refer to as the visibility wizard, starting 2.4, we're going to introduce the ability to scan for posture. So whenever you're adding an address range, if under posture you're going to check include range, what the machine is going to do, what ICE is going to do, it is going to try via PSExec to use an agentless mechanism. We're actually using PSExec, which is a WMI mechanism to run something on the machine. We're actually going to run an exe file on the machine that's going to get the inventory for us and then dissolve and disappear, right? And then everything is going to be in ICE without the need to install an agent, right? So from a check the box perspective, yes, we are agentless, right? Will you see that running in production? Definitely not. It does not scale. It has so many limitations that you do not want to run it in production. And again, it's a technology thing. It's not an ICE or a Cisco thing. What else? I talked about grace period. So here what you could do, you could actually provide up to 30 days of grace to an incompliant or non-compliant end user, meaning that even if you are not compliant, I'm going to allow you to get into the network, and I'm going to present a pop-up that says you're non-compliant. However, since we're a really nice security team, we decided to allow you access, but please, pretty please fix the problem. All right, that's the first thing. The second thing that we're allowing is to cache the last known posture status, meaning that if we know that your machine was already postured, we can cache the state and we don't need to re-validate you. And in any case, we're going to provide you with a customizable message. That's the message that is going to be presented when someone non-compliant is authenticated to the network, right? So you're not compliant but has been granted short-term access, short-term being up to 30 days. It kind of freaks me out when we know that worms just, you know, swarm in a network after 5 minutes, but these are customer requirements. And when this short-term time had expired, actually this is going to be, again, a customized message that customers will be able to change and you know, use whatever they want to make sure that the end user do whatever they want. Scalability. So again, we talked about IoT. It doesn't matter to which analyst you believe. It doesn't matter if you think that by 2030 there are going to be 500 billion devices connected to the network, which is a Cisco number, or it's a 300 billion number, or maybe it's only 100. It's kind of an insert your favorite analyst number here. It doesn't matter. It's a huge number, and some of this number is going to be within your customers' networks, and they want to be ready, right? So when we talk about ICE, what we refer to as an ICE cube, an ICE deployment, where you can only support up to 500,000 concurrent sessions, there are large enterprises that say this is not enough, we need more, all right? So what we're tracking is you know, upping this number. I'll give you some numbers in a second. We need more resiliency. We talked about this, right? We can't have a branch disconnected because the WAN is down, right? They want to be able to, you know, either continue local processing. Think of a branch of a bank, right? We don't want to lose everything we do just before the WAN got down. We want to make sure that we still provide networking access. And also we need to remember that there are some architectural limitations, such as the amount of PSNs, the amount of endpoints per PSN and per cube, and also limitations such as the maximum round trip time between a PSN and PAN and MNT. And also we see large customers, usually from a functional perspective, not only, in most cases it's a functional perspective. It's not really like a scaling thing. They run multiple cubes, or they run what we refer to as an ice tray, or an ice cube tray, right? For example, think of a bank. They have one ice cube for their administrative network and one ice cube for their financial ATM, teller machines, et cetera, network, right? That's a functional requirement. MODs, DODs kind of work the same. They like to differentiate between networks, right? From a seller perspective, this is you. Sometimes it's hard to sell into a large space because of these architectural limitations. Sometimes, you know, customers are asking you, okay, how am I ready for IoT, right? And you would like to have a better answer, and that's exactly what we're working on. So phase one for what we refer to as super scaling, ICE 2.4. Again, I am warning you, everything you see here is actually a target number, what we track. We could have, you know, either tell you and then kill you all, or just warn you. We decided to go with just warning you. This is still like internal numbers, all right? We're tracking 2 million endpoints. This is what we want to deliver, all right? Per ice cube, 4 times higher, okay? We're talking about the ability to run the live logs and the reports much faster. We're talking about differences that when I saw the differences, I was actually a bit embarrassed about our current performance. So things that take 6 minutes are supposed to take less than half a minute or 10 seconds. All right, we're talking about things at a level of improvement that you're going to notice the second you're running the machine. All right. Another thing is the creation of clusters, where you can actually create PSN clusters that manage attributes only for endpoints that are connected to this specific cluster. And the information today, every time that something or someone is connected to the network through a PSN, the PSN sends information to the PAN, to the MNT, right? And until there's an ACK process, and of course, you know, everything that happens needs to go through the MNT. What we're doing now is actually limiting, in a way, we're limiting information to be partially shared only within the PSN cluster, and then sharing some information with the PAN and MNT. So in this way, actually, even if you lose the WAN connectivity, it's still working. Even if you lose one PSN, all the rest of the PSNs in the cluster still share the information, and they know exactly what's happening. And again, it's kind of any PSN can manage any endpoint, right? Again, because it's part of the same cluster. And we're going to see some diminished requirements on latency. So we're going to allow a higher number on latency. We don't have the numbers on this front yet. Even if your customers don't need 2 million endpoints, they're going to see improvement because of the live log, because of the reporting, because of the survivability. Right? They're going to see every ICE customer that upgrades, migrates to 2.4 is going to see benefits here. All right, but what about ICE trays? What about multiple ICE deployments, right? When you want to, for example, do some policy auditing, it's a labor-intensive process. You need the ICE admin to sit together with the auditor and go line by line. all right? If you want to migrate from lab to staging to production, it's a manual process. Manual means prone to error. If you want to take a production system and kind of copy it into a lab environment, again, labor intensive. Who installed here more than 20 ICE deployments in his life? More than 50? All right, now think that the 51st or the 21st or even the 3rd is going to probably require you doing the same thing that you did in the first, because after, after the 3rd time, you kind of have your own best practice, right? It requires time, it requires kind of recurring labor, right? And if you have your own kind of, internal best practices, then it requires manual configuration, okay? I think you all know what I'm going to talk about, right? Ideas? Nothing? All right. Wow. Hard, that's your audience, hard to work with. All right, export and import. We're not only capable of exporting the policies, we're actually capable also of importing it with ICE 2.4. All right, thank you. At least I got some applause on one side of the room. The ability to, of course, encrypt it if you want to send it. All right, send it over email, download to the machine, et cetera, et cetera. The caveat here that it's only for authentication objects, authentication and authorization. All right, so only for auth objects, which is 90%, 95% of the policies that we see, and only for Active Directory, which is again around 97% of our customers, 95% of our customers. All right, so yes, we still have some gaps to fill, but for us it was important to solve 95% of the problem and help you guys. When you go to install a new ICE 2.4 deployment, you can actually do it with just install a fresh deployment and then import your kind of favorite best practice configuration. All right. When importing, you can overwrite existing data, for example, in a lab that you want to kind of imitate a specific deployment, or when you're done with the lab, you want to export from it and import it into the existing production area, and then you don't want to export it. You actually want to kind of merge with what's happening. IoT, we talked about IoT, so ICE is a prominent part of Cisco's both security and enterprise networking IoT strategy. The first phase, we're announcing the first phase here. We're allowing to provide more visibility and also look into how do we deal with more complex configuration and more complex networks. I think that another thing that we see in the IoT space is that the people that deal with the IoT technology itself, they may be great electricians or great elevator people or great air conditioning people, but they do not understand anything about networking, and we need to end security, and we need to kind of cover up for that. I think that Cisco is doing quite a good job around this in certain areas, and that's exactly where we're integrating. And also, we want to make sure that you guys understand that this is only part, right? There is a cohesive message that we're building now, and this is just the first step in the journey that we're going to be taking our customers through from an IoT perspective. All right. So first thing, we're going to integrate with Cisco NVandE, Industrial Networks Director. It's a Cisco management system that manages mainly what's referred to as OT technologies, OT operational technology. This is like manufacturing lines, et cetera, et cetera. So Cisco NVandE has visibility into what's connected to the OT network, and then actually it publishes into ICE through PXGrid, and then we can share it with StealthWatch. You can have just visibility into what you have in your network. So again, more visibility into what you have in the network, even when it's managed through a Cisco NVandE. You will see more IoT-like management systems that interconnect with ICE, because not always you want just to profile. Sometimes you just want someone else to tell you, yeah, I know this sensor, I know this light bulb or whatever. You don't need to start profiling it. It's much more optimized when you get it from someone else. TrustSec. Again, from a scalability perspective, customers ask more for TrustSec. They want to be able to, A, control the way that they deploy TrustSec configuration, especially when it comes to IP2SGT mappings, and B, they want to understand and validate that what they did is relevant. And also from a deployment perspective, us as sellers, you as the people that actually deploy it, you want to make sure that you validate the deployment as you go. That's exactly what we're doing with ICE 2.4. So first, we now support 10,000 SGTs in ICE to support just larger deployments. And also, we can selectively define which IP2SGT mapping we actually want to deploy. So if you have an IP2SGT mapping that is relevant for a specific region, for example, I will be able to deploy just to this region, and I don't have to disrupt anybody that's currently, in the middle of their working day. And now, which is still middle of the night in Europe, I can, for example, deploy to my European systems or deploy my European SGTs, right? And replace European with, campus versus data center, production versus lab, et cetera, et cetera. Another thing is the ability to validate deployments. For those of you who deployed, who has here experience with TrustSec deployments? Good. So as you probably know, when you make changes, you have to push, the configuration to the network, and it's kind of, you just have to hope that everything goes well. That's exactly what we're doing with the validation. The thing that works is actually when you push that button, which is deploy, it actually sends COA to all of the devices that are affected, and it does not send the actual configuration change, but instead it tells these devices there's new configuration, come get it. Okay, but you don't know exactly, when did they get it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's exactly what the validate deployment is doing. Eventually, what it's going to do, and you can actually configure it to run automatic verification X amount of minutes after deployment. It is going to look into what's there, what's configured, et cetera, et cetera. All right, that's the idea. So you can actually get and understand how is your deployment doing. From a profile, one last thing that I forgot. Yeah, I forgot. It was on this slide, and I mistakenly deleted it. TrustSec now support IP version 6 mapping into SGTs. All right. We have tons of customers asking for IP version 6. It's already not like you have to put it on your RFP answer so we can checkbox something, but actually customers say, unless you are delivering this, we cannot allow you in our network because we're already running IP version 6, all right? So we support IP version 6 for SGT mappings, and we're going to, with 2.4, and we're also going to support Radius for IP version 6. StackX Plus is already supported. Radius over IP version 6 is also going to be supported. Positioning, a lot of questions around when do I position SDA with ICE, when do I position only ICE? It's very simple. If the customer is sold on Fabric, if the customer is sold on context sharing with assurance, if they already look into Cat9K, if they need multiple VNs, if you're syncing with, either your EN peer, right, within the organization or with the ENSC of Cisco, and it seems like the right thing, that's what you need to position. But again, remember, you need to sell what's on the truck. If the customer requirements are not being answered but what's currently part of SDA, feel free to sell only ICE because it's going to serve you even when the customer migrates to SDA. All right. I'm not going to go through it in the presentation. Tons of links. I hope you all know cs.co/sellingice, tons of links and videos and what have you that teach you how to do stuff, all courtesy of our amazing TME team that's working really hard to get, to get these videos and documents to, and also the community where you can ask questions. Which brings me to your questions. And I remind you, Sandeep is not going to be on the stage before I get 30 questions. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. All right, any questions?
So I'll go in reverse order. You made mention of IPv6 for SUTT. Is that for classification, or is it also for propagation and enforcement?
This is more of a, so from an ICE perspective, it's propagation, okay. Right? We provide endpoints with the knowledge about this IP is that SGT. From an enforcement perspective, that's an enforcement point question. So there are enforcement points, there are switches and routers and firewalls that are capable of doing it in IP version 6. There are some that can't.
So also the follow on that is the SXP functionality within ICE that's also able to handle the IPv6 as well?
Teddy? Help?
Survey says.
Hang on.
So there's a lot of pieces in TrustSec, right, because it encompasses your whole network. So we had the Cat6K support with IPv6. We're getting it in ICE, and then we're working with the switches and routers to get it into the Polaris operating system. That'll be coming in the near future. I can't give you any dates. But what was your second question?
SXP?
SXP from ICE, is it just going to be IPv4, is it going to be IPv6, and is that going to be a new SXP protocol, v5?
Yeah, I mean, the SXP protocol is agnostic, so I believe, yeah, we'll have both protocols supported with
right.
this. This is completing our work with IPv6 on ICE, okay. And returning to the routers and the switches that don't have it.
All right, going once.
Only one other question.
Another question, all right.
Only one. On the
blame him, you're not getting beer, but no, I'm just kidding.
Configuration export, is that key bound to like 16 or 32 characters, or is that the encryption key? Or can that be greater than 32? I'm running into that in some of the DoD spaces.
I think it's limited. I can't remember the number, but I'll be more than happy to find the answer for you.
So on the config import export, I know it mentioned something about the AD object specifically. Like, so if I'm exporting it from, like, let's say my lab where I build out my best practices policy with my, like, lab domain, and I import it into a new one, will it be able to, like, adjust and, like, map to new domain objects? Or is that something, because like you said, most deployments have, like, domain integration. So would I be able to import those types of things in a way where it would adjust to that?
Generally, yes. But, again, it's dependent on specific deployments. I also think that it does not make sense because, I mean, domain users is everywhere, but, department 1, 2, 3, 4 is not going to be everywhere. So right. You want to kind of create like a template and then maybe reconfigure it just to add the relevant Active Directory object. When it comes to really, importing, exporting, it makes sense to use the Active Directory information from a working, production or from a working lab and not for a best practice
sure.
Configuration.
Okay. Right? And quick second question that may not even be, I guess, ICE specifically, but from a TrustSec perspective with SGACLs, is there any pipe dream ever possible to allow for bidirectional SGACLs? As opposed to right now I have to explicitly permit return flows and it makes life difficult, to say the least.
Thoughts, yes. This is hardware dependent.
Right.
So it will require, it's not something I tell you, yeah, we're going to release it in a patch. Yeah. There are definitely thoughts there, but it's a little bit more complex than just adding a feature to ICE.
Yeah, no, and I understand. That's why, this is yep. long term.
But by the way, the way to do it would be with firewalls. And as you know, ASA supports this, NGFW supports that. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the checkpoint world in this building, but they support it. So You have
yeah, no,
options.
that's fair, yeah.
Guys, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the evening.
Hear me? Cool. Am I standing in the way of you and the social hour? Am I the last presentation? All right, we'll try to be quick. How many of you are familiar with StealthWatch as a quick show of hands? Oh my God, that's a very expert room. Maybe I'll let you give the presentation. All right. So I'm just going to go through some of the highlights of the product, where we've come from, where we're going, and we'll go from there. So my name is Sandeep Agarwal. I'm Product Line Manager for StealthWatch Integrations. And we're going to talk about the StealthWatch portfolio overview, StealthWatch Enterprise, StealthWatch Cloud, which is brand new, StealthWatch Online Visibility Assessment, which is we've updated, and tools and resources. So just in terms of the portfolio overview, you know, as you may have heard, we bought a company called Observable Networks 6 weeks ago. That gave us a cloud presence, the ability to do security analytics in the cloud. With that, we have complete visibility. The cloud and large data centers were particularly cloud, were not in our portfolio prior to this, and now they are. So we've got, we can see everything, from the cloud to the data center to the enterprise network, branch campus, IoT devices. IoT devices are still challenging, but we actually do a very good job of that. Now, just some of you know this, we've been around for a long time as Langcope. We've got a lot of customer references, and there's two reasons that people buy StealthWatch. One is for visibility and segmentation. So they say things like, in every industry, they say things like, oh, we got an increase of 80% in visibility of our endpoints and what they're doing once we acquired StealthWatch. We're able to see traffic. We've never been able to see traffic before. And so they may or may not be explicitly security customers. They may be network admin customers, and they want that visibility. They may be into security. In addition, we're doing IOCs, we're doing forensics, we're doing security investigations. That's really the focus of a lot of our roadmap and a lot of our capabilities today. But this is sort of a little bit of a history as to where we've come from, and we get a lot of results in that area as well. Now, the portfolio it includes StealthWatch Cloud, which is basically a completely SaaS-based telemetry collection, analytics, GUI, dashboard. Everything is in the cloud, and it does two things. It does private network monitoring, which can be for on-prem networks, does it from the cloud, and it also does public cloud monitoring. So you name your favorite cloud provider, Amazon, Google Cloud Platform, et cetera. We're able to monitor infrastructure as a service, built networks in those clouds, you know, built up by commercial customers. We obviously came from the StealthWatch Enterprise. That's an on-prem deployment for larger enterprises, and obviously we do private network monitoring. And with the integration of StealthWatch Cloud, we're going to be able to watch those workloads as they migrate into the cloud. So enterprises start from the enterprise, go to the cloud. As they migrate and they put some workloads there, we're going to be able to create hybrid environments around this. So you can look at it confidently from basically end to end. Now, what would you sell to whom? So enterprise customers, you would lead with StealthWatch Enterprise, obviously, and then you would upsell StealthWatch Cloud. You could be confident that whatever you sold today would be integrated and seamless over time. We just got this 6 weeks ago, so it's not seamless yet, but we're moving pretty fast. In terms of selling to a commercial customer, commercial select customer, you would lead with StealthWatch Cloud, and then you would basically position it as you can do on-prem, but you would do it from a SaaS environment, or you can monitor workloads in the cloud. Any public cloud customer, regardless of whether it's commercial or large enterprise, if they're going to the cloud, you lead with StealthWatch Cloud, and you say, yes, your workloads over there, I can monitor. Okay, so let's start with StealthWatch Enterprise in terms of where we've come from. Very strong results in FY17, double-digit year-over-year growth. The Network Promoter Score, which is, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, you ask customers, would you recommend your product to your peers? And believe it or not, only a 9 or a 10 gets you a decent score. And so then they factor it, normalize it. You know what the industry average is for software products across the enterprise? It's 35, okay? Now 35 kind of implies I wouldn't recommend my own product that I've been using to a lot of my peers, but that is the industry average. Our score is 71. So we've always ranked very high in this, and I think it sort of talks a little bit about why we're continuing to grow so fast and why we've got some marquee names here. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these things in detail. We focus a lot on simplifying the user experience because we are focused on the Security 1 analyst. It's very important for the Security Level 1 analyst to be able to diagnose problems quickly. We're literally trying to shave minutes and hours from their time to do that. So you'll see an enormous effort in this presentation on the user experience and not having to go to a lot of different screens. We've also done some localization lately around Chinese, Japanese, Korean, so that means we're now focused and able to support APJC. We've got improved customer outcomes, so again, prioritizing the right alarms, the highest is never ends. It's a constant process, and we've done some work around that. We've integrated cognitive analytics. It used to be called cognitive threat analytics. It's another product that Cisco purchased a few years ago, and that's basically given us multi-layer cloud-based machine learning. So now we're using the predictive capability of cognitive along with the statistical capability of StealthWatch. It's all combined into one product called StealthWatch Enterprise. Encrypted threat analytics, traffic analysts, you may have heard about that. That's basically the ability to do malware detection that's hidden in encrypted traffic without having to decrypt it. It also provides crypto compliance. I just talked to you a little bit about the observable acquisition for cloud. We've also done some additional support for ICE to make sure that within StealthWatch you can see the user identity information, and we're going to continue to work on that. And then we've got something that's going to be really good for all of you, which is a StealthWatch online visibility assessment. And that's the ability to try StealthWatch, get an experience of it in my own environment if I'm a customer without having to buy a single thing. And it's really quite powerful. And then simplified pricing around our product line, I'll talk about that as well. Okay, so what's new for StealthWatch 6.9? So since you guys are all familiar with it, again, like I said, we put a lot of energy into web enhancements to make life simpler for the Security 1 level 1 security analyst. For example, we've added, and I'm just going to go through some of these screenshots. I've got quite a few screenshots to give you a taste for where our focus is. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I know there's a lot of tiny little graphics in here. The host group reports now are able to see at a host group level what the anomalies are, what the threats are, and that's, you know, if you've got an environment with thousands of hosts, you don't want to be doing one at a time. You know, even at this level, you want to do it at a group level. So we've aggregated a lot of common communications to be able to start here. You can also pick the host that, you know, within the screen that you want to look at. That just gives you an example. Once you do get down to the host level, we've got a lot of capability for, you know, who is the host talking to, how long did that communication occur, what kind of application was over that communication. That really helps security figure out what the most likely cause of a particular anomaly is and whether indeed it is a serious threat. And then we've got enhanced flow search. So in 6.9, well, we've really simplified the ability to take a look at the entire flow ledger. As you know, StealthWatch manages the complete flow ledger of communications within the business. So you want to be able to look at that very quickly without having to do a lot of researches. and this really gives us the ability to do that. We've really made this super efficient. So now let's talk a little bit about cognitive analytics. So cognitive analytics, like I said, is multi-layer cloud-based machine learning. It really leverages the power of the cloud because it does global to local correlation. What that means is that if there's a threat, a brand new threat that shows up in a different geography, gets identified and characterized, then we're already defending it against it in every other geography. You don't have to wait for it to encroach into North America or into your business. So it's really correlating and learning all the time. It reduces investigation time through a predictive learning engine. We can get into that in some depth. Hopefully you will later this week. And it's providing the ability to do encrypted traffic analytics. I'll touch on that a little bit more. So just a couple of examples of how cognitive works. You start out with a host report that says, okay, I've got an exfiltration on a particular host. You click on that and you'll see some historical detail about how cognitive has actually identified the first thing that was anomaly and graded it as a risk score. And if you leave it alone and don't pay attention to it and it gets worse and worse, the score just keeps rising until it becomes a totally confirmed threat with 100% probability. You can further look at it, quarantine it. You can, using StealthWatch, you can further look at it in terms of where all the flows went. You know, here it shows it went to a lot of different countries. That in itself is very suspicious, so you get that kind of information. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about ETA. You can think of ETA, encrypted traffic analytics, as basically, today, it is StealthWatch plus the Cat 9300 switch, access switch, the Catalyst. Now, tomorrow, which is probably literally in November I think in November, we're going to be supporting ISRs, we're going to be supporting ASR 1000, CSRs. So basically, the existing routers that you're familiar with in the branch and the campus are going to be generating enhanced telemetry and around encrypted traffic, and StealthWatch can analyze that. Today, it's the access switch. Two use cases. One is cryptographic compliance. It really answers the question, how much of my digital business uses strong encryption? Second use case is around detecting malware hidden in encrypted traffic. Now, the second use case gets a lot of attention because nobody's been able to do this without decrypting the information, and people are just amazed. But if you think about it from a security analyst point of view, the cost of detecting traffic is more influenced by having compliance across your enterprise. And so we really want to deliver both of these capabilities, is to say, okay, you want to make sure that every endpoint is at the highest level of TLS, the highest level of encryption, so that malware cannot get in there in the first place. That's what the first use case gets you. The second use case says, if something did get in there, is it malicious? You can do that without decrypting it. You can do that just based on metadata. Okay, this gives you an example of what we've done with crypto compliance. If you look at the flow table now, you're able to see actual TLS versions for every flow. You're able to see the key exchange, the key length, and you know from a compliance point of view for HIPAA, for Basel, for PCI, for a lot of regulatory, you have to be at a particular level. And right now, when we talk to customers, the only way that you can figure that what level all their endpoints is at is ask them. Okay, that's not the best way to do audit compliance. But here, we don't have to ask them. We're auditing it continuously. Now, in terms of malware detection, you can see that we've added a widget to the StealthWatch dashboard. You can actually see that for a particular host, it's encrypted and it's got malware. If you click on that, you'll actually see exactly what the name of it is. And if you click on that and view the dashboard, you go to the cognitive dashboard that gives you more information. All right, so that was a very quick rundown of the current product in the latest state, 6.9.2. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about 6.10, which is coming actually in November, and then we'll get into the futures. So with 6.10 at a glance, what we've done is continuous enhancements to the web UI. We have found over the years we can never do enough enhancements to the web UI. People want a lot of information out of this product. We're able to do enhanced security events, so host report security events, improve security event details, and usability enhancements. All of this is just to shave minutes off of that incident response and detection time. forensic investigation and detection time. Then we also got some network reports, because originally StealthWatch many years ago was aimed at network administrators largely. We still have a lot of network admins that love this product, and we provide a way to do a little performance analysis as well. We're providing KVM hypervisor support. So far we've been on VMware. Now this adds KVM. We've added FIPS compliance, which is really important for federal customers. It changes some of the rules on how we do security assignments. And then we've added a number of API enhancements that are going to be great for third parties. With any third party, we do publish the APIs already. We're going to publish these as well. What's important to understand is that we're not going to create a massive ecosystem where everybody can grab what they want. StealthWatch is proprietary information about my enterprise. The last thing a bank wants to do is have 20 ISVs saying, oh, I can grab whatever I want. But if they work with us, we're very happy to provide that, and if it's permitted by the customer. Okay. So some examples of things here with flow search. We've done enhanced flow search for 610. Now we're able to do searches by host IP address, by host groups, which I talked about earlier, by the number of records that we want to be able to see. So we're fine-tuning that. We can actually, this is a window into our flow ledger. Actually, all the headings here could go out up to here, like 50 different fields. So now we're adding the ability to see a limited portion of it, as well as see specific headings that we were not able to before, such as application type. Okay. And here's the security events in host report. We're able to see for a particular threat or anomaly associated with a host, what is the actual set of threats? We were not able to do this before. Again, you can do this with a different screen before. What we've done is put it all together so you don't have to go hopping back and forth. Host group traffic widget, that gives you the ability to see conversations at a group level between inside groups and outside groups. It also ranks the conversations in order of bytes, in order of type of conversation. So again, gives you a lot of visibility as to who's talking to whom at a group level. And then this is the dashboard related to the network admins that want to use this for network performance. So we can actually look at, this flow right here. It's red. Is it outside limits for a particular reason? Who are they talking to? What's the acceptable communication coming out of an interface? And you can trace bottlenecks if you look at its peers and say, who's it talking to? Where did that bottleneck occur? If you look back in history, you can do that. And then this gives you additional history, such as traffic type that's going over that interface and the bandwidth. So it just gives you a very good cross-sectional flavor of the kind of thing that StealthWatch is able to do. Now, one of the things that you may be familiar with is that we used to be on a Java interface. Java is actually slowly going out. HTML5 is coming in. And a number of companies are nervous about Java because it has some vulnerabilities. So what we've done is, so far I've talked about changes that affect 80 to 85% of the entire hierarchy of screens are all on Web UI, on HTML5. And by the way, those 80, 85% represent almost 100% of where users spend most of their time. We are going to do 100% of it. So for later in the fall of next year, we're going to be converting all of these as well. So everything is going to be on a Web UI starting in the fall, but for practical purposes, everything already will be in by November. I think that screen is just important in case you run into customers that say, exactly, tell me what's on and what's not. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about term pricing. So as you know, Cisco, like many other companies, is going to a consumption-based model. The benefit of the consumption model for the customer is that you pay for exactly what you need. You don't have to have visibility of what you're going to need 5 years from now like you do on a perpetual pricing. A benefit for us and for you as a reseller is that it's easier to get recurring revenue out of it. So this really what we've done is align StealthWatch to that concept of a consumption-based pricing. It makes it cheaper to get into the product. If you're a customer, we've got a 1-, 3-, and 5-year option. So if they have visibility that far out, they can get exactly what they need. And it helps customers expand as their needs grow. Now, we used to have in our perpetual pricing 266 product IDs, I believe. With term, we have been able to condense it down to everything you see here, which is probably a dozen or so. Very, very simple to order the product and create a BOM. Now, you start with a bundle. You specify the flow rate license. It's for 1-, 3-, and 5-year. With that flow rate license, you get a virtual edition of the management console, which is also the dashboard that we've been looking at, and you get the virtual edition of the flow collector, which really aggregates and synthesizes all the flows. In addition, at no additional charge, you get the proxy license for cognitive threat analytics, and that used to be a separate product. Now it's all part of StealthWatch. Now, there's some options that you can do beyond that. You can you can choose hardware instead of virtual editions, so hardware for the SMC, hardware for the flow collector, hardware for the flow sensor. There's 4 options for hardware. The flow sensor, by the way, is a product that collects net flow and layer 7 information from network devices that do not natively generate net flow. And so we have a number of customers that use the flow sensor for that purpose. And also hardware for the UDP director. As you probably know, a lot of customers use UDP already for network operations, so they run out of ports. This basically replicates them so they can redirect that traffic to StealthWatch in addition to what they're already using it for. Other options is you can get a virtual version of a UDP. You can get, if you want to monitor laptops, you want to get metadata out of laptops, there's AnyConnect, which a lot of us use already, but that is sending information to StealthWatch. You can get that license for the laptops you want to monitor or other devices. I get a virtual flow sensor, and then you can get a threat intelligence license for global threat intelligence coming into StealthWatch as well. Okay, so that's pretty simple. I think we've made it incredibly simple. So just talk a little bit about where we're going moving forward. We've talked about 691, 692, 610. I think for the purpose of time, I'm going to just, I've already talked about all of these things. So now let's talk a little bit about StealthWatch Cloud, a little bit more, I should say. So this is a SaaS-based solution. It sits entirely in the cloud. And for monitoring on-prem traffic, it puts a lightweight agent into the premise. Like I said, it's targeted largely at commercial accounts that don't have infrastructure or much infrastructure in IT. And so it gets them up and running very, very quickly. For monitoring cloud, for AWS, for example, AWS already has VPC logs that it monitors, and it's able to provide immediate information about observations, suspicious observations based on behavior. And then it also has the ability to get some feedback, which I'll talk about in a minute. So 2 parts to this is public cloud monitoring. It simplifies the security efforts. It's platform agnostic in terms of what type of public cloud providers. It's a complete cloud monitor for all the infrastructure as a service workloads, and it complements Cisco StealthWatch Enterprise offer. For the private network monitoring, which is on-prem, it's real-time behavior monitoring, actionable threat activity, defines deep behavioral analytics, and it's very much suited to commercial and SMB accounts. Now, we're going to take some of the observations and analytics work that's in this product, combine it with StealthWatch Enterprise. So if you're selling to an enterprise, you lead with StealthWatch Enterprise, upsell this for their cloud workloads. They're not going to get 2 different alarms saying go in 2 different directions. It's all going to become synthesized over time. Okay. So in summary, you get complete visibility into your network, you detect threats automatically, and you can deploy and manage it easily. I'll talk a little bit more about that. And finally, the other thing is, like I said, it gives a key way that it maintains efficacy is through a simple feedback mechanism. It gives alarms, asks the user to say, was this useful, was it not useful? And it actually gets a lot smarter in the environment. So by just that approach, it's not unlike a recommendation engine in Amazon. And you can see that it's helpful 96% of the time in established environments. Okay, very simple sales process for this. You ask your customer, do you need to monitor your workloads in AWS? Yes. Okay, step 2, you offer a 60-day trial. Sell it on GPL. Of course, for partners, you would sell it on the AWS Marketplace. And then if you have any information, if you need information, just go to that URL and you can get positioning information about how to position it, how to talk about it, what the features and specs are. Then if you want people to try it out, you can go to salesconnect.cisco.com. It's going to give you a lot of information about a playbook and 6 pages of core need-to-know content. Okay? If you want people to try it out, again, that playbook is going to give you information about how to set up a trial account, and you can be up and running with StealthWatch Cloud in about 8 minutes from what I've seen with real customers. It's very, very simple. It doesn't have the complex telemetry of StealthWatch Enterprise, but for a lot of the customers that are commercial or SMBs, they don't need all that. What they need is speed and the ability to simply do security. All right, so StealthWatch Online Visibility Assessment. So this is, we've actually been improving this, and that's really what we're trying to do is make it easy to try out all the capabilities of StealthWatch without having to buy it. And so this is another cloud, we've used cloud to do this. What we've taken is all the powerful analytics that StealthWatch does and say, what are the 8 results that drive conversations the most with customers? And can we get those kind of results from just a try and buy kind of a model as opposed to buy first? Okay, so basically you can set up an online visibility assessment with a customer very, very quickly. And once it's been running for 14 days, it's been collecting telemetry from that customer, and it's been doing analytics. You can answer some very simple questions like, how many hosts are communicating within your network, how many shouldn't be, what are the traffic to high-risk countries, what's the unauthorized access, it potentially, what are the potentially compromised hosts within your network, what's the risk of exposure, what's the, what are the behaviors that are suspicious, all of this without buying a single thing, right? And so immediately that starts up conversations about, oh, what could I do if I had the whole product? And maybe I didn't even realize half of these problems. And so that also gets you into conversation about, should I have next-gen firewalls along with StealthWatch? Should I have AMP? So this is a very good way of getting a conversation started that gets you into a lot more detail. Accessing SOVA, it's a simple matter of going to this URL. And you have to take make sure you have an assessment to make sure you can do online and downloading efficiently, but it literally takes about an hour to do that. Okay, so in summary, we're just going to give you some pointers to go to get additional resources. Selling StealthWatch, StealthWatch on Sales Connect, demos, and external pages. And I think that's conclusion right there. So thank you. All right.
Questions?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Well, are we ready for beer? Sounds like we're ready for beer.
Any questions?
Right. Please step up to the mic. He's coming.
To do ETA with the CAT 9300, do you have to have DNA center?
No, you just have to have a CAT 9300.
With a DNA advantage?
Yeah. Well, you do have to have a security license on top of that. I don't think you need all a DNA center. There's a license you need on top of it.
Well, the last question, are you ever going to just be able to ingest IPFX data from AnyConnect?
Are we ever going to ingest IPFix?
Well, yeah, because at the moment you have to have a hardware sensor. Well, that's what I was told anyway.
I don't know. I thought we already ingested IPFix.
Yeah, I was told you had to match it to a hardware flow record.
Okay, all right.
Is that still the case, or?
Yeah, I think that's true, but I don't know the answer to that.
That was
Maybe we can follow up with you offline.
I was wondering about the money scam or a reason.
Yep. Any other questions?
Got one more.
Any thoughts on supporting SFlow again?
Pardon?
Any thoughts on bringing back SFlow support?
So any thoughts on bringing back SFlow support? The thought is no. And the simple reason for that is it's sampled, and we found that too many bad things happen when you sample stuff.
So that's the Nexus guys then.
So what we want to do is encourage everybody to adopt V9 or IPFix, and notwithstanding the last question. Okay, any other questions?
One more, looks like.
Stealthwatch Cloud, especially with the private cloud use case in mind, kind of reminds me of titration analytics. What's the future of the relation between the two?
Yeah, totally different products. And if we have confused you, it's our fault. So titration analytics is for understanding application dependencies in an application map in generally large data centers. The large data centers can be on-prem or it can be in a cloud. Stealthwatch Cloud is understanding traffic at an IP level in commercial accounts. Of course, the price points are like here, okay? And so if you happen to be a financial trading company with millions of dollars to spend, you're going to care a lot about understanding your application behavior. The primary purpose of titration analytics is for application dependency mapping and being able to do migrations and complex data center operations. The purpose of Stealthwatch in any form is to do security and visibility of your IP environment. Very different products.
Okay, so is that good? All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.